The rich colors and inspiring music of K-animation spark the imagination and capture the eyes and ears of children around the world. Non-violent Korean animation that focuses on good influence. Through adventure and friendship, learn valuable lessons and realize the importance of friends. Covering topics such as family, friends, and courage, they help children learn how to interact with the world. Embark on imaginative adventures with new friends and dream together. K-Animation's special stories will warm your heart.
It's December 5th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the motion to impeach the South Korean president. A motion to impeach President Yoon Suk Yeol over his short-lived martial law declaration was reported to the National Assembly's plenary session on Thursday. The resignation offer by the defense minister, who reportedly proposed Tuesday's martial law order to the president, has been accepted. The South Korean economy showed moderate growth in the third quarter, expanding by 0.1% due to sluggish domestic demand and poor export growth. And unionized railway workers here in the country will go on an indefinite strike starting Thursday, with their wage negotiations failing to reach a breakthrough. Subway services in the capital area, as well as high-speed KTX and regular train services, will see disruptions. President Yoon Suk Yeol named a new defense minister after accepting the resignation of outgoing Minister Kim Yong-hyun, who claimed responsibility for the declaration of martial law on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Yoon's chief of staff announced that former ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Choi Byung-hyuk, was chosen to head the Ministry of National Defense. A former Army general, Choi also holds a master's degree in strategic studies from the U.S. Army War College. The top office says Choi is the right candidate based on his extensive experience and deep expertise in defense, and would ensure the military fulfills its duties effectively, maintaining a robust readiness posture grounded in the South Korea-U.S. alliance. Now, this came a day after the former defense minister offered to resign, saying the mobilized armed forces had been acting under his direction and that he was solely responsible for the events. All ministry appointments must be approved by the National Assembly. In the meantime, the impeachment motion process against the president is now in motion, with the opposition party's impeachment motion reported to the National Assembly. Our correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
A motion to impeach President Yoon Suk Yeol over his short-lived martial law declaration, proposed by the 6 opposition parties, including the Democratic Party, was reported to the National Assembly during Thursday's plenary session, with the ruling People Power Party not in attendance. The impeachment motion against President Yoon accuses him of disrupting constitutional order by suspending the National Assembly's functions and violating political freedoms by banning party activities. This marks the 3rd impeachment motion against a sitting president in South Korea's constitutional history. Under the National Assembly Act, the motion must be reported in the first plenary session after its proposal, and the vote must take place between 24 and 72 hours after that. A vote on the motion can take place as early as 12:49 a.m. on Friday. The opposition plans to hold the impeachment vote as soon as possible. According to the National Assembly Act, to pass, the motion needs the support of 2/3 of the National Assembly, or 200 votes. With the opposition holding 192 seats, at least 8 PPP members would need to support it for it to move to the Constitutional Court. If it passes, President Yoon will be suspended from his duties immediately. The PPP said it has officially decided to oppose the motion, adding that it will decide how to respond, including whether to skip the plenary session once the voting date is set. Meanwhile, candlelit protests continued on Thursday across the country, with participants calling for the president's resignation. 신하영, Arirang News.
Now, the presidential office has remained silent following the chaos from the declaration and has only informed foreign media outlets of the matter. An Sung-jin has the details.
President Yoon Suk Yeol and the presidential office haven't yet released an official statement following the declaration and ending of the martial law decree. However, the South Korean presidential office has claimed through foreign media outlets that the president's declaration of martial law did not violate the Constitution. A spokesperson for President Yoon Suk Yeol's office told Reuters that the martial law decree was done in accordance with the Constitution and was necessary to protect democracy. The statement seems to come as foreign media pressed for an explanation regarding the president's abrupt attempt to declare martial law. The presidential office further explained that the decision comes as an inevitable response following the opposition party's attempt for impeachment of head figures, including the heads of the Board of Audit and Inspection and the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office, and its unilateral handling of budget regulations as mentioned during President Yoon's speech as he declared martial law. The explanation to the foreign press also reportedly mentioned that the declaration of martial law came late at night on Tuesday to minimize any effect on the economy and lives of ordinary citizens, and that martial law troops were deployed to the National Assembly an hour after the speech. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And the extraordinary event is also sparking discussions over mass resignation of the cabinet and President Yoon's potential departure from his own party. Our Moon Hae-ryun has more.
President Yoon Suk Yeol discussed the aftermath of Tuesday night's upheaval with PPP representatives on Wednesday evening after he postponed a public appearance. The presidential office reported that Prime Minister Han Duck-soo arrived at the presidential office in Yongsan alongside other representatives of the ruling People Power Party, including party chairman Han Dong-un and floor leader Chu Kyung-ho. This comes following a closed-door meeting between Prime Minister Han, senior presidential aides, and representatives of the People Power Party at the Prime Minister's official residence to discuss the fallout from the martial law declaration. The People Power Party is embroiled in internal debates over the aftermath of the martial law declaration. On the table are several options, including the resignation of the entire cabinet and even President Yoon's departure from the party, though the latter remains a point of contention. Earlier on Wednesday, Prime Minister Han acknowledged his responsibility for the current situation as the head of the cabinet in a statement, as he discussed the possibility of mass resignations of cabinet members with other party members. Some PPP representatives have called for the president to step down, while others argue that it would weaken the government's stability at a crucial time. In a separate development, senior aides to President Yoon submitted mass resignations, including the Chief of Staff and Senior Political Secretary Chung Jin-seok, National Security Director Shin Won-sik, and Director of National Policy Song Tae-yoon. It is understood that the senior secretaries reached a consensus to resign during a meeting chaired by the Chief of Staff earlier on Wednesday. However, it remains uncertain whether President Yoon will accept all of the resignations, as an immediate resignation of all senior officials could cripple the operations of the presidential office. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
And more reactions from the international community. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Washington will continue to look to South Korea to set an example as one of the world's most powerful stories about democratic resilience. Lee Seung-ja has this report.
Speaking at a press meeting in Brussels on Wednesday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the U.S. will continue to look to South Korea to set an example as one of the world's most powerful stories about the emergence of democracy and democratic resilience. The comments followed a question to the top U.S. envoy asking if he thought the emergency martial law declaration by President Yoon Suk Yeol was a mistake in retrospect for South Korea as it hosted the Summit for Democracy back in March. Blinken also reiterated that the U.S. welcomed the withdrawal of the martial law order and respected the National Assembly's move to reject the decree. He also said it's Washington's belief that any political disputes need to be resolved peacefully in accordance with the law. Meanwhile, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan also remarked on the recent martial law order, saying that Washington will continue to speak out publicly to strengthen the importance of South Korea's democracy. Calling it robust and resilient, Sullivan also stressed that the U.S. wants to see the proper functioning of democracy in South Korea. While noting that he's watching the situation closely, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he welcomed President Yoon's decision to withdraw the martial law order. Speaking to the press on Wednesday, the UN chief spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric relayed Guterres' remarks while underscoring the importance of freedom of speech. However, others still expressed concerns over the recent declaration by Yoon. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said Wednesday that the emergency martial law declaration was worrying. President Yoon reversed his martial law declaration just hours after announcing it, following a parliamentary vote which ended it in a few hours. Not only has it triggered the biggest political crisis in decades, but longtime allies have also raised concerns over the declaration. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
So the opposition camp is planning to carry out a vote on the motion to impeach the president as soon as possible, with the ruling party opposing the move. Let's discuss the motion in detail with Professor Choi Kyung this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Professor Jo, I'd like to start with a comment from legal experts that President Yoon's reason for declaring martial law apparently didn't meet the requirements stipulated in the Constitution and also in the law. Is that so?
Yes, we believe that's the case because there is actually quite strict and narrow grounds on which you can declare martial law. I mean, you have to understand that a martial law is basically an emergency powers measure where you are essentially turning the country under a kind of a war footing so that you can marshal resources and deploy whatever is necessary to respond to the emergency that the nation is facing. So the two essentially situations where it is possible to declare emergency martial law is where the country is at war or we are under attack, essentially, or there is a similar kind of situation because of natural disaster or things of that nature. So it's basically a situation where the circumstances are so dire that the civil order has broken down and ordinary functioning of administrative and judicial processes are no longer possible. And so you have to essentially change the administration and governance from civil order to a military one. And so this is a very serious measure that can be taken, that can only be taken in very narrow circumstances. Mm-hmm. And there are very clear legal provisions stating when the president can exercise the power. And obviously we are not at war. We are not under an invasion. We are not experiencing breakdown of public order. The grounds that he actually gave in his declaration of martial law essentially cites the problems with the opposition party, mainly the Democratic Party, and how they have moved numerous impeachment motions against public officials, and they are not cooperating in the lawmaking processes. But he seems to have forgotten that it is he who has refused to ratify multiple sets of legislation that have actually passed through the National Assembly. That represents the will of the people. And so I could not find anything in the declaration that he made late Tuesday night that would actually give rise to a constitutional ground for declaring martial law.
Well, that's why the opposition party is finding it reasonable to, vote to pass the motion. But the ruling party has decided against the impeachment motion. If the motion is not passed, let's say, will the impeachment move end there, or are there more legal options for lawmakers to explore and take?
Certainly, there is no limit as to how many times that they can actually move the motion to impeach. Mm-hmm. And so if it's not possible to get the necessary numbers together, And I think the Democratic Party and the smaller opposition parties still are not enough to constitute the quorum, the necessary numbers, and they need at least 8 votes from the Conservative Party. And so they can continue to try until they get that number. And, when the motion to request revocation of declaration of martial law was passed in the National Assembly in the wee hours of Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, there was 18 lawmakers from the ruling party, the Conservative Party, who actually joined with the opposition to move that motion. And so if we just had 8 lawmakers acting according to their conscience and recognize this unconstitutional act by the president, who really seems to have lost touch with reality, I think we would be able to pass that motion to impeach. And, he seems to represent a danger to himself as well as the country and the people. And it's really, I think, imperative and critical that we actually stop him from continuing further in his governance.
Well, still, should the motion pass, would President Yoon be suspended from his role as president immediately, right? Let's talk about that clause.
Right. So if the motion to impeach the president is passed, then he would be suspended from his duties as president immediately, and the prime minister would take over as the acting. We don't really call him acting president, but he basically, under the constitution, he is designated as the second in line to take over the duties and responsibilities of the presidential office. And that's what we saw when Park Geun-hye was impeached and the then Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-wan took over as the deputy or person acting in charge.
Right, I remember
when that happened. Yes.
Well, let's say President Yoon's impeachment goes to the Constitutional Court at the end, but aren't we missing 3 judges when we need all 9 judges to conduct, hearings and also decisions?
Yes, well, you're right. So the full bench of the Constitutional Court actually consists of 9 judges, but currently we only have 6 sitting judges, and this is because out of the 9, 3 are appointed by or nominated by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. 3 are nominated by the main opposition party, and 3 are appointed by the president. But ultimately, whoever makes the nomination, the appointment is actually made by the president. And the president has so far refused to appoint nominations by the Democratic Party. And so they've actually held off nominating anybody for a while. But I understand that yesterday, the Democratic Party actually made the remaining 2 nominations that is their, select choice. And the problem is that the current President Yoon, will not actually appoint those judges to the Constitutional Court. And as you say, the Constitution says that for impeachment decisions, among others, you need more than 6 judges or justices of the Constitutional Court agreeing. And so we don't necessarily have to have the full 9 judges. And it is actually possible. The Constitutional Court actually made a decision in October that they will be able to hear cases even with 6 judges sitting, because it would be unjust for people to have to wait for the full bench to be filled. However, the Constitution specifically states that you do need more than 6 judges for an impeachment decision. And so the process will be that they will essentially have to go through the process of nominating and getting possibly the PM, once he takes over as the acting president, to confirm the nomination. And if the Prime Minister acting on behalf of, in his capacity as the acting president, does not make the appointment, then the National Assembly might move to impeach the Prime Minister, but we really don't want to think about that yet. And so we are just hoping that the appointments will be made in due process, and the process will be able to go ahead.
We are facing some critical moments here in the country. Professor Zhou, thanks so much for connecting with us this morning. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
In other news, the defense treaty signed by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Russian President Vladimir Putin in June came into effect on Wednesday. According to the North state-run media, the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Treaty went into effect on December 4th as the two exchanged the treaty ratification instruments. The media added that Pyongyang-Moscow bilateral relations based on the defense treaty would be a powerful security device, which it said would promote the well-being of the people from both regions. Following the signing of the treaty, North Korea sent thousands of troops to Russia to support its war against Ukraine. South Korea's economic growth in the third quarter of the year fell short of earlier forecasts on the back of weaker exports. Data released by the Bank of Korea on Thursday showed that the country's GDP grew by a modest 0.1% between July and September this year compared to the previous quarter, the same as its preliminary data released in October. While this marked a rebound from the 0.2% contraction in the second quarter, the growth rate fell short of the central bank's earlier forecast in June of 0.5%. This comes as exports fell by 0.2% on quarter for the first time since the fourth quarter of 2022, spurred by a decline in auto exports. The Korean Railway Workers Union has launched an indefinite strike starting from Thursday. As the final wage negotiations fell through Wednesday, the workers of the Korea Railroad Corporation launched a walkout, demanding wage increases and more staff members. It is their first strike in 15 months. The walkout is to affect operations of subway services in the capital area, high-speed KTX trains, and regular train services across the country. Korail announced that it is to operate a 24-hour transportation task force to minimize disruptions. Though most passenger trains are expected to run, cargo trains are expected to feel the brunt of the strike, with only 20% of trains running. Now, the union said it is ready to resume talks if the management is to change its conditions.
Good morning, I'm Che Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Starting in France, where following a vote of no confidence by opposition lawmakers in the National Assembly, Prime Minister Michel Barnier was ousted on Wednesday. This is the first time since 1962 that a French government has been toppled in this manner. The motion of no confidence backed by a combination of right-wing and left-wing lawmakers passed with 331 votes, surpassing the required 289. This comes less than 3 months since Barnier, the European Union's former Brexit negotiator, was appointed the position. The vote was prompted by opposition to Barnier's proposed 2025 budget, which aimed to implement 60 billion euros in tax increases and spending cuts to address France's deficit projected to reach 6% of GDP this year. President Emmanuel Macron now faces a challenge of appointing a new prime minister to manage the deeply divided parliament and address the massive budget deficit. In Syria, the United Nations say that renewed hostilities have displaced approximately 115,000 people in just 1 week. UN Deputy Regional Humanitarian Coordinator for the Syria crisis, David Carden, emphasized the devastating impact on civilians during a visit to an internal displacement camp on Wednesday. The conflict has resulted in at least 70 deaths, including 27 children, and injuries to 338 people. Critical infrastructure has also suffered extensive damage, with 43 health facilities and 24 schools affected. Speaking from Al-Dana, Syria, Carden highlighted the airstrikes and shelling in Idlib city as a major cause of the displacement. Rebel forces, including the extremist HTS group and the Turkish-backed Syrian National Army, have launched significant offensives against Syrian government troops, retaking territory in Idlib province. While aid efforts are underway, the humanitarian crisis continues to worsen as the conflict intensifies. On Wednesday, U.S. stock markets reached record highs following comments from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The Dow Jones Industrial Average surpassed 45,000 points, closing at 45,014.44, a 6.69% increase, and the S&P 500 rose 0.6% to 6,086.47, and the Nasdaq Composite climbed 1.3% to 19,735.12. At the New York Times Dealbook Summit on Wednesday local time, Powell noted that the U.S. economy is in remarkably good shape, suggesting the Fed can afford to be a little more cautious in its approach to interest rate cuts. This bolstered investor confidence, leading to significant gains in technology stocks. In particular, Salesforce shares jumped 11% after exceeding revenue expectations and raising its annual forecast, contributing to the tech sector's rally. In Paris, preparations are underway for the grand reopening of Notre-Dame Cathedral on Saturday, December 7th. The event marks 5 years since a devastating fire destroyed the cathedral's spire and much of the roof structure. Security measures have been tightened with a perimeter around the cathedral and road closures near the Seine. The restrictions have forced small businesses around the area, such as booksellers and Christmas market vendors, to shut down temporarily. However, the reopening is being widely celebrated, and the ceremony will kick off with heads of state and celebrities attending to honor those who helped restore the monument.
Western parts of Korea are forecast to see a mix of rain and snow as early as this morning. Southern parts of the west of Gangwon-do province could see up to 3 centimeters of snow until tomorrow dawn. Now, Chungcheong-pukdo province could see light flurries as well. Meanwhile, the rest of the western regions could see light showers. Now, today's highs will go up as high as yesterday. Then there will be a big drop in temperatures after today's wet weather, waking up to a low of -4 degrees in the capital on Sunday morning. Meanwhile, dry air advisory has been issued in the east of Gangwon-do along with strong winds. Take precautions against wildfire, please. Checking on today's highs now, Seoul gets up to 7 degrees. Daejeon and Daegu should top out at 10 degrees Celsius. Partly sunny skies for most parts, but Chungcheong-do and Jeollabuk-do provinces will be under cloudy skies all day today. Sunny skies are in store for this weekend for most parts, but Jeju and Jeollado provinces could see a mix of rain for Friday and into Saturday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps it up for us this morning. Thanks so much for watching.
How to survive in Korea. Workplace. Step 1. Lunchtime. The most important morning routine is to check today's menu. Food is essential for survival. Memorize today's menu. The highlight of office life. Lunchtime. Rice in the bottom left, soup in the bottom right. The top is for the sides. The sauce and the spoon go here. This is the basic layout, but it's a bit odd to switch rice and soup. When you're done, pour the leftovers into the soup bowl. It doesn't look that appetizing, so wait until others are done eating. Step 2. Neng, nep, nenep. These are the most used expressions at work. Choose the most appropriate form. Neng, nep, nenep. Remember that the formal ne can sound a bit stiff. Did you just say yes? Absolutely not acceptable. You want to find the right word for the right occasion. Step 3. Desteria. Desteria is the oasis in the desert. Show them your character. If you're not the diligent type, get a stookie plant. Work is tough. Laugh and the whole world laughs with you. Weep and you weep alone. Stay put, like the stookie that survives in the desert. Hang in there until the end. Of course, you can always quit. You matter more than anything else. Step 4. Survival kit. Every worker needs a survival kit. Survival kit level 1. This position gets the most exposure. Grab one when you need a sugar boost. Always keep a few treats you can offer your co-workers. Survival kit level 2. These are for hunger pangs before and after a meal. You'll need them when you take a coffee break with your office buddies. Survival kit level 3. Trash talking your boss with your soulmate. Did you survive in the workplace? Office romance? Be careful. Even the photocopier knows all the gossip.
이게 사람 새끼가 사는 건가요?
bring a new type of news show.
New insight, new style, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Thursday, December 5th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Ki Kim.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Brooke Prince.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So we're going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Today, we're going to look at the latest lifestyle trends among our generation. Take a look at the screen to find out more about today's topic.
One of the most iconic scenes in K-dramas and movies is cooking and eating ramyeon at Hangang River Park. It's simple. You cook the noodles using an instant tron cooker at a convenience store, and in just a few minutes, your ramen is ready. Trying out Hangang Ramen has become a must-do activity for tourists visiting Korea.
So recently, this very ramyeon cooker you just saw in the VCR that you can spot at convenience stores along the Hangang River Parks sealed a $8 million export deal at the 2024 Korea Business Expo in Vienna, Austria in October. And it's not just Austria, because Hangang Ramyeon's influence is indeed spreading globally, right?
Yes, it's early in the morning and we have to talk about this, right?
Yes, it is
making
very
mouth
painful.
watered. Well, Korea Culture Center New York Bureau has been running this campaign called It's Time for K-Culture, and they have introduced Hangang Ramyeon as part of their program. So they wanted to bring Hangang vibe in there, so made a big convenience store mock-up and made a stand before a huge LED screen where they display scene from Hangang running on a screen, and there was even a person who came all the way from Florida to Manhattan to have this priceless experience. It's about 1,500 kilometers or literally 1,000 miles, which would be like a 15-hour drive, and it's that much popular.
I can definitely feel the passion and the love towards Korean ramyeon. It's really interesting because a few weeks ago we talked about kimchi, and now we're talking about ramyeon together.
I would drive 15 hours. It's better than a 15-hour flight for the ramyeon experience.
You are indeed a ramyeon lover too,
Yes,
Pete.
I am.
And you can find dozens of types of ramyeon anywhere here in Korea. You can enjoy it at convenience stores, restaurants, or even at your home, obviously. But why has eating ramyeon at the Hangang River Park become such a big trend, Brooke?
That's right. Hangang Ramyeon has become very widely known overseas because it's been featured in a lot of Korean content. And now eating this ramyeon at Hangang Park has become a must-see tourist attraction. It's a very famous meal, but it's a humble one. It's very cheap. You can get it for 3,000 to 4,000 won, or just a few dollars. And it's very easy and convenient to eat. It doesn't take very long at all. But you might be wondering, well, why is it so special?
Right.
How is it different from the ramyeon I can just make at home? Well, there is a secret. So apparently it has to do with the cooking time. So the packet will tell you that you should cook it in boiled water for 4 to 4.5 minutes. But the cookers along Hangang Park only cook it for 3.5 minutes, a full minute less. And that means that your noodles are going to be a lot chewier. Also, there's less water. There's 40 to 170 milliliters less water that the cookers use at Hangang Park, which means that your broth is going to be more savory. It's going to be saltier. And so for these reasons, it's going to taste a little bit different. Well, you might think, well, now I have the secret. Let me just try making it by myself at home. It still won't taste the same because a lot of people, once they make their ramyeon at Hangang Park, they don't eat it right away. You have to walk to your spot for your little picnic that you're going to have on the river.
Enjoy the river view too.
During that time, those chewy noodles are going to marinate more in the broth, which is why it's so much more flavorful. And so I would definitely recommend, if you're going to go to Hangang Park, you have to try the ramyeon. It is so delicious.
I mean, after listening to what you've said, Brooke, I think all of our viewers would want to try eating ramyeon at Hangang River Park. And this is kind of like an obvious question, but I want to also ask you guys, have you tried Hangang ramyeon at the river parks? How was your experience?
No, I never have.
Really?
Of course I have.
You almost
Hangang Ramyeon was there as long as I remember. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, lots of younger generations, they would gather together around Hangang River Park during the picnic, enjoying their time. But back then, they didn't have this fancy ramyeon cooking machine. It was only a hot water machine for instant cup noodles. It's about 10 years ago, they started to install these cooking machines, and I've hosted this drone live show for around the Hangang River Park for the spring season and fall season. And I could see lots of people ordering chicken, but also I could see a lot of them eating Hangang Ramyeon, especially in the fall season because the weather's gotten colder. And then the container changed too. Before, it used to be like a bent aluminum foil, but now it's a legitimate coated paper container. And for your tip, the kick is egg. And they probably tell you at the store, and they have it in the convenience store. After a minute or so, because they have the timer on the machine that tells you the time, put the egg after about a minute. And I'm going to sing this song again from last kimchi segment. 라면에 김치가 없었다면. Have that with kimchi or 단무지, sweet pickled radish. Then that's a perfect combination.
Another good tip for those who would like to try out Hangang Ramen at the Hangang River Park. And Brooke, I think you already gave us the answer, but did you also enjoy Hangang Ramen?
I have tried it, but I haven't tried it Keys way, so I'll have to try that way next time. But I have to admit, I'm not the best cook, and I love ramyeon, so I try to make it myself at home. But when I had Hangang Ramen for the first time, it was like I was tasting it for the first time in general. It was so different. It was so much more flavorful for all the reasons that I listed before, and also just because the atmosphere, the ambiance of Hangang Park, I think just naturally makes it taste better. And also you can get various snacks and chicken, like you mentioned. It just makes a whole meal, a whole occasion of it. And I would also like to recommend, if you go to Hangang Park, do it when the weather is a little bit chilly, like spring or fall, because there is nothing more comforting than a warm bowl of ramyeon when it's just a little bit chilly outside.
Oh, I just want to go to Hangang River Park right now and have some Hangang Ramen. Anyways, back to our discussion. We've heard from our panelists, and to hear more opinions, we're going to invite a Gen Z content creator from the Philippines to our talks after this break.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
So joining us today is David Gino, a young content creator from the Philippines who runs his YouTube channel, David Gino. Welcome to the show, David.
Hi, David.
Hello, annyeonghaseyo, mabuhay from the Philippines. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So David, we first want to ask you, how was your experience with Hangang Ramen and what particularly stood out for you?
Oh my goodness, I've been to Korea 5 times already since 2019 and definitely enjoying ramyeon by the Han River still remains one of my best experiences in Seoul. It was a real life K-drama moment. And what stood out for me was the atmosphere, as you mentioned in the show. I was with my friends. It was laid back. The relaxing experience, chatting over ramen with my friends, it's perfect with a cold breeze from the river because we were there during the spring season. So again, it was a very K-drama moment because I just only saw Han River in K-dramas and ramyeon in K-dramas, and eating it in Han River, me myself, it was definitely an experience. So as a K-drama fan, it was surreal to finally experience it. And I love how very local the experience was because we were surrounded by locals, group of friends, group of families, couples, enjoying the Han River atmosphere.
I mean, the video clips we just saw, I believe it's shot by you and it makes us mouth-watered already. And many people pair Hangang Ramen with many other different dishes. And would you like to pair it with?
Generally, I love pairing ramyeon with eggs. So when I was with my friends in Han River last year, it was definitely with eggs. But I also added cheese and it made the ramen more flavorful. It became more tasteful. And as a cheese lover, I love it. And I also have friends who studied in Korea and they recommended trying it with sausage and canned tuna. So definitely, if I go back to Korea next year, I try it with sausage and canned tuna as well. And of course, the famous kimbap. So definitely more side dishes to try with ramyeon.
Well, David, I could definitely see why you're a successful YouTuber because you paint such a picture with words. So my question for you is, among all the Hangang River parks, which one is your favorite spot that you've been to so far to enjoy ramyeon?
Oh, wow. There's a lot to explore in terms of Han River parks, but definitely the one that stood out and my favorite, hands down, the Banpo Hangang Park. I love it so much. And we were there again in spring, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a rainbow fountain that operates from April to October. So around 4 to 6 times a day for 20 minutes, and we were able to witness that. So we were there in May last year, and the fountain was just so stunning. There were a lot of people, and I love that I was able to be, I was a part of that crowd. And although we ate the hanggang ramyeon after the show, because we just savored the rainbow fountain, I believe it will also be perfect to eat ramyeon as you watch the fountain at night. And also there's a view of, skyscrapers in the park, and there's this colorful dome that I love. I love seeing it while eating the ramyeon with my friends. In that Banpo Hanggang Park.
Right. And David, last but not least, you seem to know the best way to enjoy Hanggang Ramyeon. Do you have any tips for cooking the best Hanggang Ramyeon?
Oh, tips. I'm not a cook, so the automatic ramyeon making machine really helps. So don't get intimidated in cooking ramyeon, guys, because again, in convenience stores, there are machines that are ready for you to cook your ramyeon. All right, so I love it. It's very convenient because in terms of cooking per se, there's nothing to worry about because it controls the water level and even the cooking time. So it won't be overcooked. So tips, 3 things. Number 1, choose a dish that you wish to be paired your ramyeon with. May it be an egg, kimbap, for it to be more enjoyable. Number 2, choose a nice spot. So we sat on the ground near the Han River, and we definitely enjoyed it with the breeze from the river. It's a chilly night. I super love the atmosphere sitting on the ground. Again, it's a K-drama moment. And number 3, enjoy it with your friends. Enjoy it with your friends. I think ramen tastes best on top of being in the Han River. Ramen tastes best when it is shared with your loved ones. For me, in my case, it was with my friends. So it may not be your significant others, but with your friends during Han River, at night in Han River with your friends. So yeah, those are my 3 tips for those who want to experience the Han River for the first time with ramyeon.
I couldn't agree with you more. All right, David, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate your insights.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
안녕하세요.
Thank you.
Bye. Right, so as we're talking about ramyeon, we also asked our viewers if they have their own unique way of enjoying the dish. Let's take a look at what they had to say. If we look at what our viewers said, Benny D97, I add an egg, and after it's cooked, I also add cheese to enhance the mild flavor of jinramyeon. Joseph N8I says kimchi, egg, omuk, which is fish cake. Or KZLTV, I start by making garlic chili oil, then add water and ramyeon, just a bit less water than they suggest, which really brings out the flavor. Our viewers do indeed know how to enjoy the ramyeon in the best way. Now, expanding our discussion, here in Korea, ramyeon is often considered a go-to comfort food for many. For example, if you're feeling indecisive or don't have much of an appetite, ramyeon seems to be always a reliable choice. And lately, it seems to be becoming much more of a widely enjoyed dish, not only here in Korea, seeing a surge in global demand, right, Key?
That is true. When I was in the States, unless I go to a Korean grocery store, I couldn't see any ramyeon. And it was only when my senior year in high school, I started some of the Korean ramyeon, like instant noodle, cup instant noodle at some of the stores or convenience stores in the States. And since 2019, the ramyeon export is starting to breaking the record every year. So if you take a look at the chart on the ramyeon export for the past few years, ramyeon export in the year 2023 has almost doubled that of 2019. And this year is growing even faster. And China and the United States are the biggest customers, and ramyeon is getting popular amongst European countries as well, like Jungfrau in Switzerland, or even in a small village of Ladakh in India, where they only have 3 hours of electricity for a whole day. You can smell the lovely scent of ramyeon in the entire village.
Wow, that is definitely interesting. So not only Hanggang Ramyeon is gaining popularity, but also ramyeon in general is making its presence more on the global stage. Then Brooke, why do you think this is?
Well, yes, K-ramyeon is currently enjoying such a huge heyday. This year, the ramyeon exports exceeded $1 billion for the first time, which is crazy. And the biggest reason for this, as we've been talking about, is of course the Korean wave, because ramyeon is is the star of many scenes in Korean content. For example, my favorite movie, Parasite. It is an Oscar-winning film that included a very famous scene with chapaguri. Now, this is a combination of chapageti, which is black bean noodles, and nogori, which is a spicy Korean udon noodle dish. And in the movie, they also add sirloin to it. So a lot of people were trying to recreate that dish. Additionally, in Squid Game, the main character eats ramen. So because of all these viral scenes, people have been becoming more interested in Korean ramen and what it tastes like. And the other thing is that ramen is very cheap, easy, and reliable, like we said. So it is the perfect meal these days, and I think that's why it's been experiencing such a boom in popularity.
Right, so affordability, and also we keep seeing it in famous K-dramas and K-movies. And it's not just about ramen exports anymore. We're actually seeing Korean ramen being localized to fit the tastes of consumers in different countries, often blending it with unique local flavors. So you mentioned recreation, Brooke. So could you give us a few examples?
That's right. As global demand for Korean ramen has increased, they've become very clever and smart with their marketing strategies, and they've started using localization to appeal to local markets. For example, there's Shin Ramen Tamyeom, which is only sold in Thailand, and it utilizes flavors from one of their representative soup dishes. In China, there's also maratang flavored ramen, and then in the United States, we are known for some wacky, unique flavors. If you walk down the potato chip aisle in the US, you will see so many different kinds of flavors. And so they've started doing that with ramen as well, including a habanero lime stir-fried noodle ramen. I have to try that when I visit. There's also Shin Ramen Gold, which adds chicken broth to the base. And so I think that's because they want to add a sort of mild flavor to offset the spiciness to help appeal to the American palate. And of course, we have to talk about buldak. Buldak is very famous because it became viral for doing challenges on social media. Personally, I love spicy food, so it's never a challenge for me to eat a big bowl of buldak. But for a lot of people, it's very spicy, so they upload these challenges online. And so with all of these localized products, it creates a buzz around them, and it makes people want to travel to those places to try every different kind of ramen flavor that they can.
I mean, Brooke, I know that you're going to go to, you'll be in the States. So when you come back, please tell us how the American style of localized Korean ramen tastes.
For sure, I will update you.
Right, and ending off on a light note for our episode today, apart from Hangang ramen, I want to talk about when or where you guys think ramen tastes the best. Personally, I think that ramen at night tastes the best. I don't know why. It's not the best for your health, but I just find ramen at night amazing. What do you think?
Anything at night is amazing, and
right.
That's not even a question. Ramen is best at any time, anywhere. But ramen is for sure one of the best hangover soup. And when you go camping, it's a rule. Everyone's just tired of having fun all night, and the smell of ramen wakes everyone up the next morning. So even my kid now loves ramen. He's only 5-year-old, and he eats ramen. Sometimes we have to just wash the noodles in water just to make sure that it's not too spicy. But kids love them. And last time when I went to the business trip down to Busan, there was a ramen museum where the entire wall was filled with different kinds of ramen from all sorts of different brands. I did not know there are like hundreds of different kinds of ramen there. And they, on the other side, they had this ramen cooking machines, and there were so many foreign visitors who were trying out all different sorts of ramen. Some are taking pictures or videos to upload them on the social medias, and everyone knows it tastes the best when someone else cooks the ramen, and then you just have to steal one bite. So when you cook at night, I'm just gonna steal one bite.
Okay. Well, please try. What about you, Brooke?
I personally think ramen tastes best in the PC방. So if you don't know, a PC방 is a place, it's a room with a bunch of computers where people go to play video games. And what many people might not know if you're visiting Korea for the first time is that there are so many foods that you can order there, food and drink. And ramen is one of the staples of PC방. I always get chapageti, which you talked about earlier. It's a black bean noodle. And for some reason, like we keep mentioning, when someone else makes it for you, it just tastes
better.
So much better. There's like a magic ingredient they put in it. But you can also get many different toppings like eggs, rice cake, cheese, and so it becomes more of a filling meal. So my recommendation is to try it at Han River Park, of course, but maybe stop by a PC방 and try their ramen as well.
Right, so try ramen when you go camping, also at PC방. Maybe if you're new to ramen, you could visit the ramen museum that he mentioned. Also, don't forget to try out Hangang Ramen. And that's all from us today, but Newsden will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Ki Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Brooke Prince.
Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
AI, what are some dishes you should try in Korea?
Recommended food to eat in Korea are Korean barbecue, fried chicken, kimchi, kimbap, kukbap.